Thank you, everyone, for this terrific opportunity. I'm willing to bet that a few of the following statements sound familiar. You don't look a day over 30. 70 is the new 40. I am 80 years young. And of course, when the time comes, I'm going to grow old gracefully. Anxiety about aging is widespread in the modern world. According to one estimate, the worldwide market for anti-aging products grew from $25 to $37 billion in value between 2016 and 2021. That's less than 5 years. A lot of that anxiety is rooted in illnesses and disabilities we might experience as we age. One study from the United Kingdom found that the most prevalent cause of severe disability in that country was arthritis, accounting for more than 30% of cases. The fact is, nobody is immune from the process of decay as they get older. This might look a little different for each person. Limited mobility here, loss of eyesight there, cognitive decline. But aging always ends with us having to confront our own mortality. Aging makes us anxious because it exposes the vulnerability we all share. This anxiety was well known in the ancient world too. The Roman statesman, legal advocate, and philosopher Cicero reflected on getting older as he entered his 60s. He had known serious disappointment in his life. These included the rise of a dictatorship in his beloved republic and the recent death of his daughter. He wrote a pamphlet titled De Senectute, or On Old Age, and dedicated it to his friend Pomponius Atticus, who was a few years older than himself. In De Senectute, Cicero introduces a cultural heavyweight, something like the Roman equivalent of George Washington, to offer advice on aging well. He imagines a dialogue set nearly 100 years in the past, in which the famous Roman senator Cato the Elder advises two younger men on how to grow old with grace. Cato would know. He was 83 at the time the dialogue is set. Cicero, and therefore Cato, has no illusions that old age is an easy or an effortless experience. This is the reason he gives for writing to Atticus in the dialogue's preface. The weight of old age, which I share in common with you, and which is either already bearing down on us or at the very least is on its way, I wish to lighten for you as well as myself. Once the dialogue proper is underway, one of Cato's young friends says that old men feel their age so much that many complain they are carrying a load heavier than Etna. That's a reference to this mountain in Sicily, so you can see that old age is no joke. In response, Cato makes a few allowances. Nearly everybody experiences some amount of decline as they age, with perhaps a few legendary exceptions. Much like everything in nature decays and comes to an end, so too it is with people. But that does not excuse people from making their best efforts to age well. Cato asserts that the results are plain for all to see. Cicero's Cato believes strongly in the power of self-discipline and a positive mind. By living virtuously in accordance with our best natures from our youth up, we can reach a state where we hardly feel our age at all. But this is hard work. Cato describes it like this: one must fight against old age as one would against a disease. One must have a health regimen, make a habit of reasonable exercise, take as much food and drink as will restore one's strength, not wreck it. And we must be careful to support not just the body, but also, and much more so, the mind and soul. For these things likewise burn out with old age, unless, like a lamp, you add in oil. To be easily manipulated, absent-minded, and slack are faults not of old age, but of a lazy, unworthy, and sleepy old age. That folly of the old, which is typically called dementia, manifests in frivolous old men, not in everyone. Cato is insistent that he isn't just talking nonsense. There are men, supposedly, who live up to this exacting standard. For example, King Massinissa of Numidia in North Africa, a Roman ally and just as spry at 90 as he was in his youth. The description runs like this. Once he has set out on a journey by foot, he never once mounts a horse. Once he has done the same by horse, he never dismounts. He can be induced by neither rain nor cold to cover his head. His body is characterized by terrific dryness, and therefore he performs all the duties and obligations of a king. You get the idea that if Cato kept describing Massinissa, he would eventually say something like, once Massinissa was bitten by a cobra, but after 5 days of agonizing pain, the cobra died. By the way, Chuck Norris was 71 years old when that joke was put to film. Cato finally says about a man like this, he may become an old man in body, but he will never be one in soul. 90 years young, indeed. Now, as harsh as Cato's words might seem to us, the idea of preparing while young for a thriving old age has some wisdom in it. Modern experts in aging would more or less agree with Cicero about the value of exercise, of a healthy diet, of keeping the mind active. But if we fully accept Cicero's mind over matter message, it leaves us with a problem. He claims that nearly every disability experienced by older people is due to character flaws, not to old age itself. If so, is he required to judge those whose old age is marked by disability? If Cicero were being completely consistent with his philosophical theory, he probably would condemn older disabled people. But other writings indicate that his attitude on this issue could be more complicated. In fact, disability can be a means of making heroes of people Cicero admires. Take a look at how he characterizes two elderly senators who take a leading role in a worthy cause. This is from his legal defense speech for Rabirius on a charge of treason. Marcus Aemilius, although he could scarcely walk, felt that the slowness of his feet would be a hindrance, not in pursuing the enemy, but in running away from them. Quintus Scaevola, worn out by old age, all but lost to illness, maimed and feeble and weak in all his limbs, was displaying both the strength of his spirit and the feebleness of his body as he leaned on a spear. In Cicero's eyes, these men's disabilities did not indicate bad character. Rather, their perseverance in the face of disability was such that it became a glorious thing because they were stepping up to fill a key role in the community. From Cicero's point of view, his judgments on disability and old age depended more on context, on social class, on interpersonal relationships, and on political values rather than on philosophical theory alone. There's an important implication in this for the way we think about disability and old age today. Physical factors clearly matter for the way we live our lives. This was true for ancient people, and it's still true for us. Whether or not Cicero admires him, Marcus Aemilius still has trouble walking. And yet, the interpretations we place on old age and on the disabilities that often go with it matter just as much or more for individuals' well-being. If we already have reasons to like and admire someone, we tend to view their limitations through a lens of much greater empathy. Viewing Cicero's takes on old age makes it clear that empathy is, in some sense, a choice. And I would argue that it's one worth making, because in the end, we are all mortal. Thank you.